How about now? Sound? Do we have sound? Looks like we do. All right. Human vegetable. All right. Maybe next time. Well, thank you everyone for joining. I was looking forward to this one. I think the colors really pop. Wow, the background went crazy a little bit, but we'll just roll with it. So let me pull up some of your questions and some members' questions. So if you still don't know, we have a members area in on buymeacoffee.com/starpath academy where members post questions and I do my best to answer them. All right, so let me check a couple of questions. How is everyone doing? Sounds good. All right. And in the meantime, I will start with a question from a member that I received recently who is asking the following. And of course, I'll obfuscate the question a little bit so I don't give out any personal details. But he says a personal question of mine is I live in a well hidden property surrounded by forest in the mountains. I have a well for water. I'm trying to grow most of my food on a 0.35 acres, but I'm only 8 minutes drive from 8,000 population city and an 18-minute drive from a 50,000 population city. My region of insert European country here has around 88 population per square kilometers. Is this away from the cities enough to be relatively safe when inflation or food shortages hit? He has no neighbors really, but he's in the process of getting a self-protection tool, and he has a large German Shepherd for protection. And he is 25 and he has anxiety and he doesn't have the money to buy a 20-acre farm right now, but sure would like to have one. So that is his question. And to me, my answer would be actually, I think you're doing fairly well, compared to most of the people that I know. So I think you're doing pretty good. However, being very remote has its own problems as well that I would want to let you know. Personal story of my family is during the World War, the Second World War, we had a cabin that for some period of time that my grandfather and his family went to with my father when he was a baby. And they thought that would be a good option to get away from when the Russians were coming in after the World War has ended and they were occupying Romania. However, it turned out it wasn't necessarily the best option because a lot of atrocities were happening during that time. So it was pretty smart to think of this way. But if they would have been caught, then they could have, the Russians could have thought that they were partisans, right? Or guerrillas or something like that. And a lot of atrocities were committed, but even in big cities. But if they would have caught you like just with your family outside living in a very remote area without any connections, you could have done very poorly. So that needs to be calculated in that, yes, it's good to be able to have a place to go to in a SHTF situation, but you need to have connections there, know if trouble is getting to your place, and then if that happens, then need to be able to be flexible to move even from there out in the wilderness, if that would come. And of course, this is kind of an edge scenario, but my advice would be to work on connections more and have more people that you can rely on. It's more important than living far away, because trouble can find you anywhere. And during the hyperinflation of the 90s, this wasn't very common. However, just marauders and robbers can go to these cabins, and they are searching out places. Now I know a story from the 90s as well. However, the cabin was taken apart and mostly stolen or burned, but luckily nobody was hurt. So actually having multiple family members or having a community of people there is much better than being on your own, or at least connect with other people with cabins in the area that you can go to if it gets really bad. So having connection is much more important. But being remote is very good for the couple of first months. It's much better than being in the big city. However, I think the distance is enough. People don't really travel that much, and they bug in most of the times. I mean, we're talking about people bugging out and all of that, but to be honest, that is sort of far fetched. Nobody really wants to leave the city or their home and the comfort of that home, even during these times. All right. So, but I think you're doing pretty good. Just work on connections and storing more food, because I don't think 0.35 acres is enough to self-sustain unless you're really focusing on high nutrient and high protein stuff like chickens or raising animals. But it's just going to be hard, in my opinion. You don't necessarily need 20 acres. I mean, if you have 20 acres, you can grow whatever you want, but at least you will need 4 to 5 acres to live comfortably, I would say. And in the meantime, a lot of questions came in. Sammy says, "Thank you for all your efforts, bro. Thank you very much." Then we had some issues with the sound. All good now. Yes. Money printer go brr. I think it's gonna go brr a lot. Yes. Get your security up, fam. Yeah, definitely. Security plan is good to have, but not just static security. You need to have a community that you work with. What are good foods to buy? Spam. Well, actually, I really like spam, and that's because it was rare for us that we even had meat in some of these times. And when we would have some spam, that was like really divided up for the family members, and you would only get a slice or two. And it was just having in the early days, especially of the hyperinflation, it was very hard to get meat. So I still enjoy tasting spam, and I think it's a really good option if you can stock up on it. And I know the Hawaiian people like spam and appreciate spam because they had some own natural disaster that they had, and when the ships weren't coming in, and a lot of people stock up on spam there as well, and I appreciate them because just it brings back memories, and I think it's a really good thing to have. Yeah. Did you or anyone use RVs in regards if you needed to relocate? We would have probably, however, we just didn't have any. Romania was like from an international standpoint was still very poor. We did have natural resources and we did produce stuff, but RVs are really a sign of prosperity. Like if you take a look at the world as a whole, then RVs are definitely a sign of prosperity in the West. As so, we didn't have any, but it would be nice to have, definitely, because mobility is very important. especially as if the worst time gets, you need to be mobile. So it would be very good. However, you need to know what roads you're traveling on. Um, Someone fell asleep, but he's back on. Yeah, I mean, this is a midnight stream again. So we don't expect too much, but that's nice. We're gonna have a cozy talk, and if you're sleepy or if you're on a schedule or something, then definitely go and have your sleep, and we'll talk next time. So I'll try to schedule some live talks in different times as well. But I wanted to sort of a slow going stream today or tonight. So you'll catch up, get your questions in, and I'll get to them, and you'll catch me next time, or you'll watch the video tomorrow. So don't worry about it. Neața din București. Bună dimineața, OG Borg. All right. Question: do you think I could barter bread? Yes, definitely you can barter bread, especially nowadays. A lot of people don't know how to make bread. Since the surveys of sickness and the pandemic and anything like that, I guess a lot of people started learning how to make bread, but it's like minuscule amounts. So you could definitely do that. Yes. I currently make bread using solar generators. That's really good. And bread makers, yeah, I guess that's good. I scored 4 bread makers for a total of 25. Looks like you're thinking ahead. Yeah, so definitely if you could do it with solar or something like that, that's very self-sufficient. We bake bread, but we do it in an oven and with a Dutch oven. So if you know what a Dutch oven is, then or you can look it up. It's very easy to make bread in that. I can probably give you a good book to get started if somebody doesn't know how to make bread. I'll probably post a link. Yeah, it's a French guy who helped start the La Brea Bakery in LA, and he has a French country bread recipe that's really good, and that's how we started when we still lived in LA, and it's just really good. And I mean, I get the bread makers, and that's really good if you have them, and if it's solar, even good. But think about low tech making bread, how you can just do bread in a very low tech way. So that would be important as well. But you would definitely people traded bread as well. However, it's sort of perishable items, so you need to work out connections, like who you will be supplying with bread during these times and what you get returned. So some type of at least oral contract would be necessary. It's not like you just go out and sell your bread, because well, I mean, you can do it, but it's going to be hard. What will become of insurances, vehicle, life, medical, home, etc. during hyperinflation? So I don't know what will become in the United States, but they completely collapsed in Romania. We didn't have this. I mean, we were a communist country before, and then sort of a semi-capitalist socialist country. So we didn't have this market for insurance. A lot of things were sort of quote unquote government insured or something like that, and that went away. Private insurance, I mean, the richer people had that, but they went bankrupt really fast. It didn't really work out. So to give you an example, and this was a confession of a lady who sold insurance from the start of the hyperinflation in Romania. And there are different types of insurances. And I think there was one type where I mean, especially in Romania, didn't care. We didn't care about the insurance. I mean, you were happy to be alive. You didn't care about the insurance, especially insuring stuff for physical items. You didn't care about that. So of course it got bankrupted. But the confession, I read this from her, and was that so anyway, the type of insurance was that if you don't end up using from a certain period of time, I don't know, it was 10 years or something like that, that money is accumulated somewhere and you can get it out. I'm not into the big too big into insurance, but that's how my understanding was. It's that type of insurance. And if you know what type of that insurance is, then let me know. I think it was life or something like that. And anyway, so eventually this person, an older person who had the insurance, went through it, and the 10 years or whatever has expired, and the same lady was still selling insurance, of course now in a different world, or the world looked differently now, and she came back to the same person, and it was sort of payout time, I guess. And she still had the papers, and she remembered some of her conversations with this older gentleman, and like what that money will buy at certain point, and how he could put that money towards a house, because the payout will be so high because of the high interest rate and so on. And she had a very, very sort of sour taste in her mouth when they met again, I guess. And they kind of laughed it off, because eventually the money bought him a shoe. So he bought a brand new shoe from that money. And it was kind of hard to read her story, because she had, I mean, she was selling the insurance hoping to help people, but yeah, I just went to zero, and people didn't care about insurance. And this mentality of not caring about insurance got so deep in the Romanian people that they are still having a hard time to have insurance, even insurance on their house. So, and now there's a lot of trouble because of that in Romania currently. Hi from Singapore. Hi. Store lots of, well, okay, I have to, this is going too fast, I guess. Store lots of food. I've been storing beans, rice, flour, red wheat, and now corn. Going to a rural king tomorrow to buy feed corn. It stores good. I'm told it's there for you can recommend, if there are items you can recommend. I mean, I think you got it right. Beans are definitely one of the best source of protein that you can store easily. And roots are really good too, because you can store them in a root cellar, right? So anything that is a root that you can consume, it's easy to store in a cold place. From potatoes to carrots to radishes to anything in between that you like to eat that is a root, and you have a root cellar. It was very important for us to be able to store without the need of electricity. So that's, I mentioned a couple of times, smoking was big, smoking meat, and having a root cellar was very important. So, but now you have other options as well. Freeze drying, if you can afford that, or freeze dryer, or you can buy MREs as well. But I always think that storing seed is probably the best thing to store, because nature itself prepared seeds to be stored, right? They have a long shelf life, so to speak. So anything that is a seed is the easiest to store by far. But you have to know what you're doing. And mylar bags and oxygen absorbers are really important. So now you have a lot of sort of technology, and you're also a wealthy nation and part of a wealthy nation. So you should live with your opportunities. In my how to prepare for hyperinflation, the first video and the second video, I kind of talked about my point of view and what we used, but I will be going on what we used back then, but I will be going into what you can use now, sort of a modern prepper's way. So let's not forget that. Oxygen absorbers and the mylar bags are really important. And think about seeds, and the closer it is to how it came from nature, not storing processed food, is very important, right? We had also chestnuts and other types of nuts again that are seeds, but you have to know how to store them in a where ventilated dry area. Corn, just like the pieces of corn taken off from the cob, storing that as well. And rice. We didn't have too much rice because that was an import and we couldn't afford rice. So rice was actually quite expensive for us. But I will be going into more of this question in the future videos of how to prepare for hyperinflation. So thank you for the question. I will note it down. And I have a question from the members area from buymeacoffee.com that I wanted to get to. Let me see. What are some hobbies you enjoy or have interest in, not related to prepping? Having lived through hyperinflation at a young age, I can only imagine how that could have impacted your life/career choices throughout your life. We want to know the inner star path too, not just prepping stuff. These are the nicest questions, I honestly. Thank you very much for asking these. Sure, so I'll go in a little bit of that too, and we'll get back to prepping after this. So for me, different stages of my life, of course, I had different hobbies. Um, Martial arts was probably the biggest one early in my early life. I did study martial arts for around 6 7 years during that time, and that was big for me, and it had a big impact on my life. And that was important too during hyperinflation. You had to be, especially being a young person, then you had to be able to defend yourself. And Right, so I studied kung fu, wushu kung fu, but it had two parts. It had some parts with like arms and swords and that sort of stuff, and then another part which was sort of like closer to what MMA is now, but without the ground tackling stuff. So we would go to competitions, and you would like you would get points if you could put the person on the ground, but there would be not a lot of effort done on the ground. You would have to stand up again and then start over. So that was probably the biggest hobby back then that I had, that kind of changed my perception on life as well, and it was very important at that point as well. After that, and as soon as I started my university, or even before that, I was always interested in electronics and just fixing electronics, like old radios, and having a soldering iron and taking stuff apart and putting stuff together. And that's just, I guess that also comes from the need to repair stuff and seeing my father always repairing stuff for other people as well. That kind of played into that. So I really liked electronics and playing with electronics and electronic equipment. I also later on I taught electrotechnic in high school for kids, only for a year or something like that. Teachers were not paid well. I don't think they are now, but anyway. But I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed teaching kids. So that was again something that sort of changed my life, and I still have that hobby. I have like open source programming Arduinos and some other microchips, but that I do as a hobby, and radios and that sort of stuff. I just don't have too much time for that, but that was another hobby of mine that I'm, if I would have more time, I would still do that. And just programming is one of my hobbies as well, my work and my hobby as well, and I really enjoy doing that and contributing to open source projects as much as I can, sometimes under pseudonyms, not my own name. So I like doing that a lot. And right now, woodworking is something that I enjoy because I can do that with my my wife and even my kids can enjoy that. So that is something I really enjoy doing. Woodworking, building furniture, may that be patio furniture or children's furniture. It's one of the best things that I enjoy right now. And gardening. So prepping or not, I would still do gardening because I feel that I'm not sure what the expression is, but having your feet and your hands in the dirt kind of grounds you and gives you inner peace. I don't know if you guys find that true, but if you do gardening, just and growing stuff, it just takes all the stress away from your life, and it grounds you, and you are in the moment. It's almost like meditation. And speaking of meditation, at some point in my life, I did yoga as well, and meditated, and I mean, I still do, right? And being interested in alternative medicine, just as a hobby, and studying like herbs and essential oils and that sort of stuff, and collecting old books from my grandmother's era about like how to prepare certain teas, or what is what I mean, there's so many knowledge from generation that gets lost because grandmothers don't pass it down, because the kids are now interested in playing computer games or something like that, and it's very hard to get that knowledge back. So that is something I enjoy. Then you probably guessed it from Star Path Academy. Stargazing was another thing for me that I like doing with my father, and just being interested in celestial objects and that sort of stuff. And that kind of went also into studying ancient history, like really ancient history, and what their beliefs were. So I had subscriptions for like the National Geographic history and that sort of stuff, which I enjoyed and still enjoy. I don't have any subscriptions now with them any longer, but that's for a different reason. So yeah, I hope that answered it. Yeah, these were probably the biggest ones, but I have more. All right. Hi from Singapore. Hi there. Buy massive amounts of Twinkies. I think I know what Twinkies are. Good for food, and when you can't eat them, they will probably turn into bricks to build with. All right. I thought you were serious. Okay. How hard it is to leave for a better jurisdiction under hyperinflation? Well, it's much harder than now. I can tell you that. It's always easier to pre-position yourself for something. It's just going to be hard. Like, think of if you have cash now to purchase something then that you need when you get there, or to change houses or something like that, everything gets super hard because your cash is deteriorating. The value of the purchasing power of your cash is deteriorating, and there will be shortages in certain stuff. It will be much harder. I mean, that's just the truth. So we repositioned ourselves, but it was just from the city to a place we already knew, and we already had some type of infrastructure there, right? But these aren't, I mean, transportation kind of dies anyway, dies down, and people don't use it. And energy is much more expensive, so it's just going to be hard. Now if you have another location that you already have set up and you're planning to go to in an SHTF situation, then that probably might work out for you if you take the signs seriously and you do it early on. Later on it might be more dangerous. It depends how bad the situation gets, but don't plan on, you know, once this hits, I'll just buy a place in X jurisdiction. It will be I mean, just now, with the prices of houses going up this fast, it's really hard to purchase somewhere without selling your own home, or even if you sell it, by the time the contract goes through, is just more. Like for instance, I I don't want to predict stuff, but what I see happening in the future is that builders will have in the contract that if their materials will go up in price, they have the right to terminate the contract or something like that. So businesses will find a way how to navigate situations, well, not necessarily during hyperinflation, but as times kind of speed up towards hyperinflation, there will be still some businesses that can stay alive, but it will be very rough, for them and for you as well. Yeah, good idea on the bread. Yeah, I will have to look that book up. So bread is really good, but you have to be able to make it with, well, store the ingredients in raw forms. Storing flour now is much easier, so I guess it's okay. But for us, storing grain was easier, right? But now with mylar bags and oxygen absorbers, you can do it, and we can talk about that in the future video. Yeah, just know with grain or flour or anything like that, it doesn't get contaminated later on. I mean, it's already contaminated as you're harvesting it. All the germs and bugs, they're in spores already in there, and you're actually eating it. Everybody is. So it's not like you can encapsulate and then nothing will happen to it. If the conditions inside the encapsulation is already there, the bugs and the germs and whatever, they already grow inside. You don't have to contaminate it. It also plays into terrain theory, I guess, if you know what that is. But so yeah, you need to be able to store it in a form that you can use it. Weekends are good for late night streams. Yeah, I should probably not be this late, but it's fun because it's slower. If this was a weekday, that would be different. Thank you for your information. Thank you very much for joining. Thrift stores are awesome for bread makers. Just make sure the paddle is there. Yeah, we don't use bread makers, but I think what you're getting at, it totally makes sense because unless your stove is with natural gas and you have a lot of natural gas stored, it might be hard to make bread without. Like it's always good now with the modern technology, and if you don't have an outside place where you can make bread, then I mean, what we had an outside kitchen, we called it, which was basically a fire stove. So we had a kitchen inside the house and outside the homestead, which was a summer kitchen, they called it, which was an iron stove, and yeah, it was totally different back then. Now those stuff costs a fortune. I don't know why. How busy was an average day? Did you have time to read about how to do something, or was there not enough time? The days were very busy. I would say the days were very busy because you had to make sure that you have enough to survive, especially the first few months. And until you kind of build those connections out with people that you probably don't have right now. And doing a lot of favors for people in the hopes that if you will need them to help you, they will help you back. And just building that was really hard, so you didn't have too much time during daytime. And during nighttime, the family got together, and we enjoyed some tea and sat down, and we talked about like what's the plan for next week or something like that, or tomorrow. And we played actually card games with the family. And I mean, sometimes we also got together in a room because it was cold and we didn't have a way to heat the place. or we would have very little firewood or something like that. So that was also the reason as well. But later on, we did have more time, and that's actually when stargazing and studying the stars with my father kind of started as a sort of a bonding experience as well. So we did have later on towards nighttime, we did have more time, or later in the afternoon, we did have time. And my sister read a bunch of books. Sometimes with candles. Well, it wasn't candle; it was these petroleum lamps. I don't know if you know what they are. Yeah. So later on, we had more time, and once you have the garden going, um, there's stuff that you need to learn, but once you get the hang of it, it gets easier and easier. But yeah, I remember days were busy because sometimes we would have to go scavenger hunt, which is, I guess, a funny way of putting it. But especially when we were in the city, what we would do is go out, and a lot of these old factories, well, now they're old. Back then, they got turned inside out. A lot of stuff was stolen from them, and sold on auctions. And in one of my members' video, I think how to get rich during hyperinflation part two, I talk about that. So around these huge real estate and these huge zones that was once locked off, everybody just went to scavenger hunt for basic materials to like iron, copper, that sort of stuff. Like people took copper tubes to make moonshine, and that sort of stuff. So you were always busy, and if you were not busy, then you were okay with starving, I guess. But yeah, we did have some family time even then, especially during the nighttime. Um, and it felt more quality time, to be honest. We didn't have any TV or anything like that. We spent a lot of time talking, and that's one of the reasons why I know a lot about the previous hyperinflation period, right? That my grandmother lived through, because we just talked a lot and we listened to them, and we had also a lot of respect for the elderly. Great question, by the way. Bread is good. Looks like bread is the topic for tonight. I like it. I really like bread. I mean, helped us survive. So bread is really good, but sure you have ingredients stockpiled. Also look at things like cornbread. Yes, cornbread was big for us as well. There's something called in Hungarian called male, which is easy to make, and we ate that all the time. Oh, super chat! Thank you very much. Let me see. Some guy super chatted me $20. Well, let me finish the cornbread story, and I'll get to you. Thank you very much for your super chat. So we ate cornbread, and when we had enough of cornbread, then um, uh, my grandmother would pull out her jelly or something like, or jam or preserves, and we would put a little sweet on top of that and eat it like that. And then when we didn't have any more of that, then we would eat it with milk. So some of our neighbors had cows, and we would barter for milk. And it was raw milk, by the way. I think sometimes we boiled it or did something to it, but we just consumed raw milk, and nobody had any issues. I think that industry needs to be revised, the milk industry. Anyway, let me know about your opinion about milk or whatever. But yeah, cornbread was big. Super chat. God bless you, my friend. Thank you very much. God bless you too. Appreciate your willingness to share your testimony and aid others in preparing. Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, I think of these times as pleasant times, even though they were not pleasant. But I think just maybe because I was also young, and reflecting back, both of my parents lived, and it's whatever the times were, it felt good, for me, because that was life as I knew it. I didn't necessarily have too much like now it will be much harder even for young people, because there would be a good life that you kind of lose and then you go into this new life, right? But for us it was just a continuation from communism into hyperinflation, so things got bad but we were so already kind of used to it. So for me, I actually enjoyed a lot of these like quality times that I could spend with my parents and family. And I thought everyone, even outside of Romania, lived like that. And it turns out it's not, right? So, and I thought like that was just normal. We didn't have TVs or internet or anything like that for me to know. And we didn't consume international news or anything like that. So for me, it was just life. And unless you have your neighbor's lawn to see that it's greener, you don't care. So it was that. I think that's why it's easier for me to share, but I know my parents' generation, it's very hard for them to talk, and for good reason, of course. They were hit the most, like spiritually and mentally, because all the burden was really on them, I feel. My grandmother's generation actually had way worse times during wartime, where this was just, oh, it's another ride on a roller coaster for them. So actually my grandmother was very light-hearted. Like she smiled a lot, and she maybe she faked it, I don't know, but it made us feel really good. Anyway, she was an amazing woman. Just a story about her. She was pregnant with her first son, my uncle, and this was during wartime, Second World War. And yeah, they actually, their family prepared for everything back then, and even for the war, in the sense they actually built a bunker um, outside, so not too near to the house, but on the property outside, so thinking if the house would be bombarded, that they could go there, and that's what they did. um, but actually a lot of their neighbors did not prepare at all. And well, guess what happened? All of the neighbors ended up in their bunker, and she was pregnant. And it was so congested, everyone in that bunker, that she felt really sick, of course. And she was, well, as a pregnant lady, she didn't care about like bunker or bombs. I just want out. So what she did with her father, my great grandfather, they went out of the bunker and actually stayed on top of the bunker. And she was telling me that they could see the bombs flying, right? And she said it was peaceful. Yeah. Okay, let's go back to cornbread. All right. Yeah, so times, man, times change. All right, cornbread. Making biodiesel. Let me see. I don't want to miss any questions. I'm curious about refrigeration options. We can't afford solar and wondered what was used on your grandmother's farm. Yeah, we didn't have a freezer. We didn't have a freezer. Eventually, we kind of bartered for it, and we had the freezer, but we didn't want to solely rely on that. We had a lot of smoked dry meat stored on in the attic of the house, a well ventilated place in the house. So there's a lot of stuff that you can do with canning meat as well, with lard. So lard was really good to store meat in, and we consumed the lard as well. So like a common food for me was, which I like enjoyed. It was a lucky day if we could have that. Was a piece of bread with lard on it, and to make it more exciting, they would put some raw onions on top, and that was your dinner, and it felt good. I had enough potatoes for a while, so just eating a piece of bread with lard was really good. And we put some sweet paprika on it, so dried paprika powder on it to make it good. And yeah, everything. So if you would cook some sausages, you would put a lot of lard, so the lard would take up the taste of the sausage, and then once the sausage was gone, you would eat that lard for days. But it was good. It was one of my favorite things. So yeah, you can. I'll probably talk more about in prepping videos on how to store stuff, but check out my first, or my, I think, part two of the how to prepare for hyperinflation. I think I talked about it there. But there's I would like if people or other people would contribute how you can store food, but definitely with the outages in electricity, we would not rely. But if you can afford solar, and you have a refrigerator, and you have a freezer that you can power off of solar, and you live in a fairly safe neighborhood, where, because solar would be targeted, like um, then I think it's great. If you kind of live sort of off grid somewhere with only friends living nearby you, I think that's a good option. But in a big city, like, those solar panels, it's a sign of wealthiness, and people will come for that. The one thing, like, you always wanted to actually appear poorer than you were. So that was sort of for safety, you know. Not it was sort of rare during daytime that people would rob you. I mean, it happened, of course, even to me. But yeah, just during nighttime or day. Yeah, I mean, let's just get into a different topic because it's not a YouTube friendly video. But yeah, just know that people wanted to appear less wealthy, and the quotes wealthy, uh, than they actually were. So you never wanted to give away what you have, and that was good for also for negotiations and barter. Because, like, let's say you had something and you would tell that that's the last thing you have, and you can't just give it away, and you need to ask for that price. Of course, that was sort of with people who you don't know, people who you trusted. You couldn't play this because that would lower your social standard, or standing. That if you pull that game all the time, you people don't want to barter with you anyway. So being honest with close friends and family was always the best and straightest answer. But people from other towns, when they would come, they would always put like, oh, that's the last thing they have. That also brings me into this modern prepping and gear buying stuff. I mean, it's great to have that. Don't get me wrong. It's really great to have all this gear and night vision and everything that people prepare with on these prepper shows. It's really great. But if a true SHTF scenario happens, actually that's a liability, because if people see you with all this gear, you're a target immediately. Like, you think that having a vest on you, or like a fancy vest with all these ammo or whatever, that is good if you are on an operation and you're doing something. Totally, I agree. But it's not like you're going to be wearing all of that all the time in case the Russians are invading immediately. It was always that you wanted to seem harmless, and you wanted to um, seem poorer and worse off than you were actually, because that was a mechanism for safety. If you have a bunch of gear with you, people could snipe you from a distance, right? Because they will just want your loot to gamify it. And I'm sorry, but that's the truth. So it's good to have, but you have to be strategic in using it. So that's something to throw out there. But I mean, if you can afford it and you have a plan or whatever, I'm not saying don't get it. Just think about what you're doing and how you will use it. All right. Making biodiesel fuel would be a great strategy. Yeah, I have to look into that, to be honest. What people did was, actually, in our region of Romania, natural gas was abundant. That was our luck. In some parts in Transylvania, natural gas, purest, I think it's one of the purest natural gas out there that you can have. Very little refining needs to be done or nothing at all, and you could just use it. So natural gas we had, but gasoline and diesel we did not. I mean, Romania had, but it would be consumed by industry or other parts of the country, and we would never had it. So we had gas shortages, and what people did with their cars, they would actually convert them that it would work with natural gas, and you would have these metal tanks in the trunks of cars, and it would go with natural gas. So if you act, I don't know, like, and it's easy to store, and I think you can store it indefinitely. So I've seen little bikes that go that use natural gas. I think something like that to have would be good. But if I'll look into biodiesel. Actually, I looked at it like not that back, but I need to understand it more. But thank you for the tip. It's really good. Christine, yes, I plan for offer bread exchange for flour as well. But yeah, skills. If you can make bread, that's already a good skill to have, even if you don't have the resources. But make sure you have the resources. Yeah, children clothes. I mean, even during these times, parents went to long distance to make sure that their kids have everything. So clothes and children items and powdered milk was actually a really good barter item. We had very little powdered milk, but we used it also as a barter item. And I think other countries, when they help out, and we like international powers or whatever, did help Romania out some in packages, and they did send a lot of powdered milk to the point where it's I mean, I'm assuming this happens in Africa as well. It never really gets to where it should get, and what happens is actually people would auction it off. The people who should be distributing it were auctioning it off, but that made it even more valuable, and it could be used as a barter item to the point eventually when people had too much powdered milk. I don't know how, and yeah, I remember actually eating some of that because we didn't have food, but we had powdered milk, and my mother could prepare something from it. Yeah, but I mean, it's not like there were a lot of babies around us. People don't want to make too many babies during these times, so you can imagine. Start learning skills now. Yeah, people ask me how to prepare, on a budget. Learn a skill. That would be the first thing, and have connections. You know, keep hard copy books. Yeah, I agree on that. I definitely agree on that. And I have some books, but I need more. I'm prepping and some other stuff like books to have, like these survivalist books. I have some. Um, Definitely about tying knots. I know a couple, but I bought a couple of those as well, and how to make traps, and that sort of stuff. Because you'll probably in some point in your life you will have to make a few traps to trap a few animals to eat if it comes to that, and it's not easy. I mean, you have to know what you're doing, and my dad knew, but we were lucky enough to be able to grow vegetables to where we didn't need to rely on that. And also, I'll talk about it later. Do you think the coming crash will be like the past where we recover and move forward as usual, or will this be really bad because it's a global issue? I'm concerned about positioning for a rebound. I mean, history tells us it will rebound, but your lifespan might be, or people's lifespan might be shorter than the rebound period. So you will never know when the rebound will start to happen. I mean, if you ask my opinion, the rebound will happen, and I don't. I have a hard time seeing that a crisis would take longer than 20 years. It's just how that rebound will look like. It might be very different than what you imagine. Like it could be very authoritarian world that you wake up in, right? And even if it's a rebound, it might not be a rebound for you in the way of life that you're used to now. So yeah, and I agree, it's a much bigger issue because it's a global issue now. Our thing, as I just said, like we had, international help. It wasn't really that much, but I mean, God bless the people who actually helped. So I think once it's a whole hemisphere that's going down, um, it will be much worse, and the frames will be much different. It would be more, not the last time it was the collapse of the Soviet Union, but I would think this time it would, like, the closest comparison I can say would be the collapse of the Roman Empire. So yeah, I mean, and I mentioned this as well. Communism lasted a long time, from 50s to 89 in Romania. So people were born and probably died during that time, and they never knew anything but communism, right? But if you take a step back in a longer period, that's just not so much. So, but it is for you, it is for us. But yeah, I don't see a fast rebound. And if even if there is a rebound, it will be a different system, and which might not look the same. Also, the dollar and precious metals. I'm also preparing in other ways too. Yes, mylar bags and oxygen absorbers are the best bet with food storage. Yeah, I agree. Seeds are vital as well. Thank you. Thank you very much. During those hyperinflation times, did you guys have any issues with water sourcing or storage? Um, yeah, so we were lucky. Again, the our geographical situation was that it was a hilly area, and we had 4 or 5 natural springs around the small city and even outside the city, which were potable. So you could drink that, and people would line up. We would have long lines there, and we would have like these containers that we would fill. And after a big rain or something, you would have huge lines. And but to be honest, water was not shut off that often. I mean, we didn't have a complete societal collapse, in the sense government still continued in one shape or form. And I mentioned it before, they always want to make sure that they keep it up, because if not, it's their life on their line. Like if water and electricity stops, especially water, for a long time, at that point people don't care if they die from thirst or hunger or from gunshot wounds. It's just equal for them. So they might rebel or might start civil war. So the government really wants that water flowing, believe me. And as much as they can, they will have it, even if it's from freshly printed currency that they pay people to make it run it. And of course, it will be nationalized and so on. But if it's a total societal collapse, yeah, I like one of the first things that I put in an Amazon link or whatever in my prep videos was a water filter. Um, like, you have to know where you live. We had good water source for us, fresh water. I mean, maybe towards now, from our standards now, it would be actually bad water, but we didn't care and consumed it, and we had diarrhea all the time and whatever. But yeah, just having water filtration is huge, but also knowing where you live. Like if you live in Nevada in the desert, it's a different story, man. I wouldn't want to be there. Then you need to think about storage and all that stuff. I would say uh, have a homestead to near source of water, and then you can filtrate it. It's very hard. Water storage is the hardest thing. Um, there were people who would dig huge holes in the ground And there were strategies that you could use. I have to look it up, but the that white powder that they coated out, and I mean, I'll look it up exactly for the English names of how what they used, but it was fair, and I mean, it was just a few, and a lot of people outside of the city just had shallow wells. We had one too, but that water actually was not potable. We had to go to our neighbors to get drinking water when we were on the homestead. But I think is the hardest thing and the most important thing. But right now, I live where water source is abundant, and all I need to worry about is filtration and thinking about electrolytes is good, and collecting rainwater. One thing that I want to let you know, you can always collect rainwater. It might be illegal, but you can always collect it, and you can. I'm not sure if owning rain water collection systems is legal or the action of collecting it is illegal, but you have to take a look at your local laws or whatever. But even if it you cannot collect it now, having the tools or the know-how to collect it in an SHTF situation is important. I mean, just for watering plants, for if nothing else. But you have to. I mean, you have to know your county and city rules. Yeah. During those hyperinflation times, did you have any issues with water? Was salt very valuable in cooking oil? I think. I mean, all of this comes back to how rich Romania is in natural resources. Salt. I mean, we had a salt mine. What it was it like 60 miles from us or 50 miles from us, so salt for us wasn't that valuable because yeah, Romania is super rich in natural resources. We didn't even know how good we had it until foreign nationals came in and kind of took over the industry, and then they were, they utilized it, and they were selling it off to other investors and exporting it from the country instead of the people actually using it and enjoying the wealth that we had. But cooking oil, yes, cooking oil was very valuable, and we would use that as barter as well. Even us, we grew sunflowers. We traded the sunflower seed into the mill, and they would give us sunflower seed oil for it. So when some of this land was reappropriated back to my family, to my grandmother, that was taken away during communism, we were able to, well, not us, but we rented that land out to people who had equipment, and then we worked on the farm as well. Not the people there at the farm to plant sunflower seeds, and we would trade in the sunflower seed, and we would get certain number of these small barrels of sunflower oil that we would trade, and that was very important. So having that was good, but well, most of the times we did cook with lard. Like once we had that system in, and my cousins were growing pigs and so on, and we had actually lard later on. That's what we used. Question: did people ration their own food to stretch their stores for the future? Yes, of course. Would you recommend accommodating your stomach to 2 meals? Either I do, definitely, because it will be a bigger shock for people. Um, I mean, I don't know if you have to do it right now, but you can fast. Yeah, if I'm pronouncing it right, fast or fast, where you don't eat almost anything uh, for some time, and we do that as well. In our family, we do a 40-day fast where we consume very little food. Of course, the kids get to eat regularly, but us, we try to eat very little food, and that is to get used to the fact like how would we fare, because it what fasting does tell you also if you have any issues in your body, it brings it out, because when you're feeding yourself with all these nutrients, it kind of covers any illnesses or anything like that that you have. But as soon as you start consuming your own fat, basically, for resources, it's good to show like if there are any inflammations in your body or that sort of stuff. So it's sort of like a self-testing thing as well. And even if you take a look at religions and on, it's really good to do. I don't necessarily think you have to like live like how you would live in hyperinflation all the time, but having these things as tests would be really good. I definitely agree on that. And of course, we rationed food. Like you would not believe how how much. I mean, once if chocolate was another barter thing, and when we would get chocolate, I'm not sure. We had these chocolate bars, and you could you could take off one like these rows and columns. I don't know. I'm going into software development mode in chocolate, but you could turn like you can break off bars, and basically the chocolate portion for me a day was, it was definitely smaller than this. I don't know. Yeah, maybe half of this. This is a memory card or whatever, sort of like that. I don't know, maybe half of that. Yeah. But it was comfort food. People needed well, not per day, but when we get chocolate, that was my piece. And we would ration it, and we would save it for good. In good families, you know how your kids are doing, and you know when someone needs more attention or not. And chocolate and some of these foods were comfort foods, because this thing gets to you. Like I sometimes laugh it off and cry it off and whatever, but if it goes on for a long period of time, it like your psychology changes, everything changes in you, and you as a parent need to know and need to be aware of what's happening with your kids, because it it might affect them as well, not necessarily how they see their surroundings, because they accommodate to that very fast, but they see you, and if you're having problems, that they will reflect that. So having some comfort food and other ways how you can treat, I shouldn't say depression, but those times that when people are down is very important. So, but yes, we would ration all the food. Everything was rationed. So getting used to that is a good skill. It actually trades. It takes a lot of skill to be able to ration food per calorie and everything. Do you think that shoe cobbler will be useful to use in that shoe cobbler? I do think that. I do think that it was definitely. So my grandfather was a shoe cobbler. One of my grandfathers was a shoe cobbler, and for a certain period in his life. And my father was a apprentice, shoe cobbler apprentice during his youth, and he actually knew how to repair our shoes. So we were very lucky. And he always kept stuff in storage, like pieces of rubber and certain types of glues and certain types of like the sewing needles and leather. And so he could probably build a shoe out of nothing. um I mean, just from scratch. But yeah, so we had our shoes repaired over and over and over again. It was very important. Like people don't put like now in good times, it's easy not to think about shoes that much, but um and even us when we were barefoot on the farm, it was, I mean, it's hard. And if your feet are hurting, you're not able to do any work. I mean, if you've been a soldier or in the army, you know that, right? Yeah, it's very important. Shoes are very important, very, very important. So I would think so, but it depends on your situation. Now people are throwing out shoes all the time, and I think they're all made in China. Like I don't think the U.S. has an industry for shoes. So I think it would be good, and it's a skill, so you can always trade it. But diversify, because maybe in your area that might not be. So never just have one skill that you're relying on. But good for you if people are still doing this. Where in the US do you believe the best suited to prepare for a financial crisis? Yeah, I did read stuff. If you follow this YouTuber called Wrangler Star, well, let me know if you follow him. He had a really good video about this. I think he's the one. And I will try to link it in the comment section where he there's a book about this of where in the US is the best, and it takes a lot of things into account. But I think population density, access to resources, and culture is very important. And I don't think it mentions culture though, but the culture is totally different in New York City than in the Panhandle of Florida. It's very different, and you can see it, right? And I think people's sense of, I don't want to say justice because it's been overused in with other words as well put together, but people's sense of truth and honesty is the most important. If enough people around you are honest, and usually that does couple with religion. So I think like the Bible Belt and that sort of places, or wherever you are, people do believe that morality comes from belief systems, and to a certain degree it's definitely true. So, and then people like my atheist friends asked me about this and so on, and I did mention that I don't, you might not have to be religious, but if all your neighbors are religious and good-hearted people, that you might enjoy that. So thinking that as well. And I mean, I have a couple of places, but if I say one or two, the comment section will be just about this. But yeah, I'll try to point you to that video about that book that talks in larger extent about this, and I would add culture to that as well. But it depends on you. Wherever you can have a good connection with people, it will be good. Even if it's a desert, because you can probably grow stuff in there as well. Maybe you can have deep water wells or something. Yeah, having connections is the most important thing, not just location. I was wondering the same thing. What state do you live in? I live in the south. Question, mid south. Would we still have a major Walmart type stores open? No, 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 no way, no. No, you would not. You would have actually smaller stores. Stores would be broken up, and people who have accumulated stuff prior to hyperinflation and want to make a fortune, they would now be opening up shop here and there and would be selling stuff to you. When you spoke of deflation, what reserves do you need? Yes, I did need to expand upon that. What reserves do we need? Cash. I cannot tell you what you need. I can tell what I think is good for me, and that for reserve is cash. When I made that post, mostly I was talking about cash because a lot of YouTubers talk about how cash is trash and so on. Definitely true during hyperinflation. However, if a lot of people are positioning themselves to hyperinflation, it might happen with a trick before it, because This is not a natural disaster that you prepare for, and then when it happens, you're doing well because you prepared. This is a more dynamic system between you and the rulers of industry and economy, right? And when the reset happens, it's a more a gameplay, not a financial, not a natural collapse. And they're like, as you are watching the markets, the managers of the market are watching you back. Like, they know what people's reserves are, where it is, and so on, right? And it will be a sort of a managed collapse. It might not feel like that, but it will start out like that. Eventually it can go and completely break how it was in Romania and no longer be managed. But what I'm saying is, it's really a teeter totter. And if a lot of people are, because of the news cycle and everything, a lot of people are going towards the inflation side, it just totally makes sense that a short deflation would happen to offset and make sure that these people are losing that position that they have, that they would have going into hyperinflation. Because think about this, when we were in Romania and we were going into hyperinflation, that was the worst for us because we didn't have any debt and we had a lot of cash reserved as a country, and we had a surplus, and we had no debt as a nation as well. So people had cash. We were not allowed to spend it because the government was limiting it. And I mean, I can get into more communism more in a members video. But anyway, so hyperinflation was the worst possible thing for us back then. But for the United States, a deflationary crash could actually be worse for them for a short period of time. So if you are preparing for the worst, then a deflation that takes your asset away that you own now with the mortgage is much worse than a hyperinflation that pays that mortgage off, so to speak. So if a reset would be planned by central planners, then if I would be them, I would make sure that I generate a short deflation where I make sure that everyone who has assets with mortgage or with debt, they lose that. And after that, I would hyperinflate the currency. So that's, in my perspective, that's the worst case, because you are getting the hyperinflation and the societal collapse that comes with hyperinflation, but you're not getting any benefits from hyperinflation, like you would get normally, that your debt is inflated away in purchasing value. So that's why I mentioned that in my own plan. I cannot tell you what you should do. You should consult with an investment advisor, as I always tell. I'm not sure why you're asking me. Okay, just joking. Definitely consult with an investment advisor. But I want to make sure that I have enough cash to service my debt for at least a year or two. So I'm building it up to two, because a short 1-2 year deflation could wipe a lot of people out, right? But if you have enough cash to survive through that, a coming hyperinflation will benefit you, if you're prepared, of course. But if you don't have that cash because you keep on touting cash is trash, then a deflation will wipe you out, no problem. For instance, this video should have been like half an hour. Now it's like 1.5. I like talking to you guys. You guys are the smartest audience ever. And I'm really saying that. I'm honest. Right. So a short deflationary crash could take a lot of people out. That's what I'm saying. And if you're touting cash is trash, then you might be taken out. and your property and everything will be taken away by short deflation. And that's why I didn't understand. So when I talk about debt, I don't have personal debt and I don't have any credit card or anything like that. I never had any debt in that sense. Um, Owning real estate and owning entities that own real estate is a different thing. But me personally, I the only debt I ever had was to my dad, who helped me with a plane ticket, and I paid that plane ticket back. That was my only debt ever. That was my biggest debt. I probably had like $20 here and there. But never to an institution. I don't believe that. I'm a financially sane person that if you cannot buy something with cash, then you cannot buy it and you're just really faking or yourself. But if it's an investment and if it's something like that, I do like agree with a lot of you that you can use other people's money in the sense to make interest rate arbitrage or make you know, play the market in one way or another. But that's me personally. If you don't agree with that, then I you know, hats off to you. But yeah, I don't believe in personal debt. Definitely nothing that would be changing in rate. If you cannot calculate in that, then it's, you shouldn't have debt at all. So that's why I didn't understand what was the big fuss about the 2008 crash. Like if I didn't have any debt, you know, it was, for me, it was hard to understand that. Well, when people speak about owning something, that's really the bank owning something, and you are sort of the guy who pays for it every month. You know, it's a very few things that you can own in life. You know, actually, precious metals is one. But you think you own your car, you know, good luck with that. Try not paying your taxes or your insurance, you know, your mandated insurance. You will know who owns the car, right? And same with real estate. You think you own your real estate, even if you have it paid it out outright, you know, try not paying the HOA. You know, you will know who owns the house. And if you don't have an HOA, then try not paying the mortgage, and you will know who owns the house. And if you don't have a mortgage, then taxes. Try not paying your taxes, and you will know who owns the house. There's very few things that you can actually own in life, right? And even with precious metals is a bit different. It's actually your own experiences that you own in life, right? And the knowledge and the emotions that you have. That's the only thing you can own in life. We're getting into philosophy now. But yeah, very good question. So thanks for allowing me for expanding upon that. I meant primarily cash. I do believe you should have precious metals and stocks and other stuff as well. I do believe I should have that. However, you need to be able to pay the king when the king wants to be paid, because this is his currency. It's Caesar on that note, right? And it all needs to go back to Caesar. And that's what it is. Good evening, brother. Good evening. The Potters Stackers, thank you for stopping by. Wood-fired oven, bread, and pizza, indefinitely. And yeah, we did all of that. Wood-fired oven. We will be able to drive 20 miles every so often, or will we be impossible during hyperinflation? I mean, we were able to drive once we accumulated enough money to purchase gas. You know, multiple families putting money together for one travel of a 5-person car, you know, and we were 9 people in it or something like that. But yeah, it wasn't like the law was still pretending to work in Romania. So it wasn't like marauders stopping you on the street. Maybe nighttime, but never daytime. How useful was the religion and the church in these times? I mean, for each their own, you know, for some it was everything, and for some it was completely not at all. So a lot of, I will have to do a video. I think societally speaking, it was very important, right? Because it helped keep society together. When laws are breaking down, you will know that it's not laws that govern society, it's belief systems that govern society. And then laws are formed based on the belief systems. And as belief systems change, the old laws become a burden, right? And that's what we're experiencing with all the culture change that's going on. And then they want to change the old laws or the old rules because now it's a burden for them. But for long time survival of a society, belief systems, and in our case, Christian Romania was very important. And that's what it is. And you can agree with that, and you don't need to agree with that, but that's how I see it. If it would be like a high moral society even without religion, it's certainly possible. But I think that always also comes with, and these are my opinions, it's fine if you don't agree with me, that always also comes with prosperity. So if you have prosperity and you have a high moral society, that's totally possible. But think about how many countries around the world have broken down economic systems to where not even governments exist in some places of the country. And what holds it back? What holds it together? Whether for better or for worse, it's their religion, right? And yeah, it's the belief systems. And government is a belief system. It's part of a belief system. And that's like, we could argue on that. All right. Oh, a lot of questions. Do you think the US could end up like Yugoslavia? There is a Russian professor who made a prediction of the US breaking up into certain pieces. I will not make my opinion. However, if you want to hear a good point, well, not good or bad, but like a good argument for that, I will look his name up. And I think I already mentioned this in a previous video, but his name is so hard to pronounce that it's just hard for me to remember. But I was talking about a revolution index. So if you look up the revolution index, that's also from him, I believe. And he has compelling arguments. Like, whether you want to believe it or not, he has very, very compelling arguments. I would hope not. I like the US the way it is, but yeah. When things don't work, things change. And there are 6 ways how new systems come in place. And we will have a video about that. And one is balkanization, right? I have a wonderful cast iron Serbian coal wood burning stove. That's good. I really like old timey stuff, and the quality on some of those are really good. Is plumbing a good trade? Yes, plumbing was a very good trade. I mean, it's just systems need to go. Whether government is present or not, you still need these things in place. Just I have to go faster on these questions. Just as Jacob says, I was going to ask the same, similar but worse. People should have cast iron Dutch oven or and the like. Yes. So during this July 4th, Independence Day, this year, we used our Dutch oven outside as well. We have multiple ones, and it's amazing. I mean, it's really good. We haven't used it outside that much, but camping and whatever, I mean, they're amazing and they last longer than lifetimes if you take care of them. It's just really good, good to have. Yeah, I would definitely advise people on having Dutch oven. Wow, a lot of questions. I'll just have to speed it up, guys. Did you have electricity during this time? Yes and no. It was on and off. We had it, but we could not rely on it. We had backup plans for everything. Light, like we had petroleum lamps. We had um, yeah. Now you have solar and other stuff. It would be different. Irish sofa bread. I'll look it up. I don't know. Irish soda bread. Okay. I make no need sourdough from scratch. Yes, that's what we do as well. I'm not sure if it's no need. I have to ask my wife, but we do sourdough because it's just much better and healthier in my opinion. If you're a doctor, let me know if that's true or not. But we were also, it was hard to get yeast. So you have to know how to get a starter going for sure. Yes, raw milk is delicious. And Shinjin, I hope it's legal where you are. It's crazy how many regulations we have in countries, but it was definitely delicious. Yes, I feed my kids almond milk. Stay away from the modern milk industry. Yeah, yeah, modern milk industry is yeah, it needs its own video as well. I tend to know something about it, and I agree. There are no other mammals that drink other mammals milk after infancy. Hmm, that might be true. I have to think about that a little bit. However, there's a lot of mammals that do other stuff that no other mammals do, and humans are mammals as well. Whether it's natural or not, that I can agree on, but we tend to do not a lot of non-natural things as humans, to be honest. So that by in itself, if it's a religious thing, then I agree. However, it doesn't mean that people don't do it. There's a tribe, I think, in Afghanistan that almost exclusively consumes raw milk, and they tend to actually have a longer lifespan. But if you know the guy, I have to look the tribe's name up. But anyway, so I agree what you say, but as humans, we don't always do what natural is. I mean, we're our own species, I guess. I liked making bread with honey in it. Good for you. Have to try it. I haven't. Yeah, I think I might have. My wife made honey oat or something like that. Lots of 100% wool blankets, durable clothing, and footwear are important. Yes, I agree completely on that one. There will be clothes everywhere. Yes, the United States has a lot of clothes, but um, I mean, if we couldn't import for 2 years, I'm not sure if that would be still the case. You know. Hello, hi there. Your emotion makes 100% real. This makes it all worth it. Well, thank you. It is what it is, and I try to be honest with you guys, and you guys are honest with me, and that in and of itself, I think, is how like we humans connect. So I think it's important to show honesty, like, and if if some laughter, some crying comes out, it is what it is. I'm curious how important it is firearms during hyperinflation if there would be happen. So I will have a separate video on security and where I will go in a lot of things. I might have the firearms video or the more intense video as a members only video. I don't necessarily want to talk about it too much on YouTube. However, let me just say it's important to have safety. So, yes. Also, how, especially nowadays, it's the culture and the morals are very different. And the benefit of you could make your own whiskey, a good barter. I mean, definitely, if you can make your own whiskey, that would be perfect. I know about moonshine and how to make moonshine. A lot of people made moonshine, and I think it was one of the top bartered things. However, me being honest with you again, these were hard times, and a lot of people touched their own stash, so to speak. So people thought they would barter, and a lot of people ended up consuming and ruining it their lives because yeah, things get hard. You have to be emotionally strong, and there were definitely people who could do that, no problem, and traded moonshine. However, you have like I've seen stuff that I will not talk about it on YouTube, but families get destroyed when the main provider for the family is or turns to alcoholism, especially during hyperinflation when there's no social net or whatever, like a system in place. Um, it will be very hard. And I'm like, um, how should I phrase it? I'm not sure if you want to be a merchant of misery during these times. I'm not against, like religiously against alcohol, but I've seen some stuff, and you want to make sure that it's in line with your spiritual and moral self, and make sure that you have other barter items as well, because you might not want to deal in that if you see a lot of bad things around you happening. So think about that. But yes, it was definitely good. I mean, and I think that's a good skill to have, even if it's not hyperinflation. But it was a very good barter for those who used it. Also, how was life for the everyday person who didn't see what's coming? Nobody in our circle knew what was coming, and it was horrible. I mean, all these videos are about how it's from the average everyday perspective, because that's what we were. And I mean, we'll just continue with this, but it was, yeah, just prepare for good stuff. Do you think multivitamins would be beneficial? Yes, absolutely. Fruits were again a good barter. We didn't have multivitamins or very limited supply, and people would actually consume that. You would have to have a lot of it to barter it away. It was very valuable. Nowadays, of course, it's more available, but I think it's still very valuable to at least to have for yourself. I'm not sure if it will be that good for barter now, but who knows? Were bolt screws and nuts good for barter? There was a shortage there. I mean, I still have the um, instinct of, if I see a bolt or something on the ground, I pick it up and bring it home with me, and I have my little jars and whatever where I sort everything. Um, so it was very good. Yeah, it was good, but you have to find your niche of people who are mechanics or something like that, because it wasn't like everybody was using it. But my dad fixing stuff, it was very valuable for him. It occurs to me that simple hard work could be good spontaneous substitute for coins. Yes, it was in certain circles, but you had to be in that circle. Got to be better than fiat. I mean, everything was better than fiat at some point. We could make Lowe's new central bank. It would make sense, to be honest, if all of us would be, DIYers, bolts and nuts and screws would totally work as currency. You're right. The rebound will certainly be authoritarian. That's what it seems to me, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. It doesn't. I mean, they can have their plan, and you and I can have ours. Get a Berkey, yeah, for water filtration. That's what I would say. Yeah. Don't you think prepping in an urban area is different than rural? Absolutely, very different, completely different. In an urban area, having uh, meal MREs is a question of life and death. Yeah, I said it. I eat 2 meals per day for the last 25 pounds. I stabilized. Good for you. Yeah, I mean, um, I don't talk about it too much, but having a good health is the best commodity that you can have, and especially during bad times. So whatever you can do to better your health now is probably the best thing you can do. I completed a 40-day last 2 months ago. Yes, the 40-day fast. Yes, good for you. High grade alcohol is great for barter as well. It is, but take into consideration what I just said. Could you get coffee? Coffee was one of the best gift items that when you were looking for favors or trading favors, coffee was it. And bananas, because bananas were an import. Nobody had bananas. Bananas were really good for us. So anything that's an import and we didn't have coffee, you could give as a token of gratitude. Like sometimes, a doctor would take care of you and you would not be able to pay, but in potatoes, and you would know that's sort of like not his salary, but if you couldn't pay him in anything, you would try to get some rare item for him. After a minor surgery or something like that, what you would say to him is like, "Hey, I'm a car mechanic. Like, I can't pay you, but if your car breaks down or you have some issues, be sure to come look me up and I'll help you back." And then coffee and then some of these exotic things were very good gift items, not necessarily barter items. I mean, you could barter with coffee, but it would have more impact as a gift item. Enjoying your stuff, bro, but I gotta go to bed. Yeah, I should go to bed too. Some Red Wing Bull. Oh man, there's a lot of questions. So I'll just pick a few more and we'll have to stop in, I just say 10, 15 minutes. But I enjoyed this a lot. You guys are amazing. Oh boy. Being a barber was still a good skill. Like you could imagine that people would care less about their looks, but yeah, being a barber, my aunt was and still is a barber, and in a men's barber shop, and she did fairly well. But it changed, like the barber shop would close down, but you could go on the street and offer your skill and your tools for people for other stuff. I mean, it was very different. But it was still good. It was still good, but it wasn't like the highest paid stuff, but people would still care. So it's a good skill to have. My mother was the youngest of nine and had terrible feet from wearing ill-fitting shoes. Yes, shoes are important. I absolutely agree. Boots are important. Taking care of your feet. Joel Skoosen, thank you very much. Jason's works. I think that's the one. Yes, I will have to copy this out and probably purchase it myself. Joel Skoosen, if I'm pronouncing it. Strategic Location is the book's name that we were talking about. The showcase, I would say a barber is good skill. Yes, also with sharpened scissors and knife. Yes, sharpening was pretty good. My dad was able to do it, and he made friends. He didn't necessarily make a lot of money with that, but he made good connections with that, sharpening other people's tools. Looking back at your life, would you wish that Romania was better when it was a socialist country, or changes that made it better? I'm from Belarus originally, but I live in the US now. I mean, I will tell you that it's not just the economy that's changed, but also the culture. And sometimes it's very different. It's very hard to differentiate what changes came from culture and what changes came from the economy. Anyone who says that capitalism doesn't create wealth um, didn't study enough. Like it has its very bad parts, and definitely predatory capitalism during hyperinflation made things probably worse. But if you take a look at history, the free flow of goods and services, and us being able to work out our own system without necessarily a third party um, taking part of that brings human freedom, and human freedom comes with prosperity. So I have to say that. But looking back, there were definitely good things that we had even under communism and even under socialism that we don't have that now. And it's hard to tell if that's a cultural thing, if it's an economic thing, and you just have to write it off as change. But if you would go and ask a lot of people that were especially very young during the height of communism, maybe it's a bias or not, they would say, well, that was better. Well, it's always better if you were young and you were healthy during that time. And now you ask someone right now, oh, how are things doing now? Well, oh, the world is falling apart. Right. So it's very hard to tell. It's very hard to tell. It's personal. A lot of people did good under communism, and they were party members and they didn't necessarily care about stuff that you would care about, or otherwise ways. Any political system, there's always a divide. And I will go into more details of my thoughts about it. But good question. It's just probably not the YouTube question, because it will have a bunch of unnecessary debate about stuff that we no longer have. I don't think we have capitalism or socialism or communism now. It's completely different, and I will give my opinion for members. Jason's works, yeah. So let me make sure if I answered your question at least to some degree. Was better when it was socialist country. Some things were definitely better. Like if I would say not, then I would be lying. But I don't want to write off that that was just better and not with capitalism, because if the general life didn't, like, the quality of life did increase after capitalism came to Romania, and everyone could tell that. But some things did work under socialism much better. So it's a trade-off, and it's not something we chose. But yeah, I will go into more details about political stuff in private videos or members videos. By the way, membership is for, but I just have to schedule them. Membership is on buymeacoffee.com/Starpath Academy or on Patreon. And I have some alternative channels as well, just in case, but that's the YouTube content for non-YouTube consumers, which I appreciate people de-Googleizing, if that's a word. And a benefit if you could make your own whiskey. I think we went through that. I mean, good question, to be honest, very good question from Belarus. Yeah. Yeah, I would probably answer more of that in a private conversation. And a benefit if you could make your own whiskey, good barter, silver, gold, good. Yeah, definitely any precious metal, anything that would survive a long time collapse that you could bury in the ground if you want and just head for the hills or to a different country, and then 45 years later you can come back and it still has value. I mean, are you kidding me? And that's both for whiskey and silver and gold. Do you think they will take our homes away? Like they did everywhere else in the socialist countries. They did take land away for sure, and I think that's the plan. I'm not sure if it will work. Just because they have a plan and they spout it out loud all the time that you will own nothing and you will be happy, that doesn't mean that it has to happen. I mean, maybe you have a say in that. Think about that. But we'll have to see. I think there's a plan to modernize, and I'm using that word loosely, and also a plan to increase efficiency. I think that's what the planners are seeking, increasing efficiency, because they see a lot of jobs that are no longer needed because of robotization and technology that is coming. I think we're on the brink of a technological shift, like how the cotton gin took a lot of works jobs away. That's like banking is really banking needed now. I mean, to be honest, like they're just borrowing money from the central government and passing it on to you. And okay, of course, I'm bringing this on a bit in joking manner because you do want the freedom to choose your own bank, so don't get me wrong. But if all the banks tout all the same stuff and there's absolutely no difference between Chase or Bank of America, is there freedom of choice? Like, are you guys using a small bank, a small local bank that I think you should, um, if you're into that? I'm not giving advice. If you're not, does it make sense to have all these big banks that are exactly the same in flavor and in everything? Then, in the perspective of the quote unquote managers of the central banks, that is just clutter. There's a lot of clerks and everyone in the banking industry that they don't need. You might think that you are the target of the reset, but if you're just a worker, you'll be just a worker again. But all these middle level layer managers, the millionaires and billionaires who they want to reset. Like we were very poor, and we did very badly during hyperinflation. But for us, the fall wasn't that big. It was for the richer people that the fall was big. That's what they're really resetting. And then if you're you know a fairly well off person who come from a rich family, and you're looking forward to the reset because it's coming from your political side, then think again. you know yeah. All right, so I'm not sure what will happen, but hopefully everyone has a saying that it's democracy, right? Good day to you from Malaysia. Yeah, I like these countries. Inflation is a big topic, many unknown to know. It is, but people will get used to inflation. Believe me, everyone, like even in Romania right now, you have huge inflation. It's a system that you can live under, but you're constantly losing your value that you worked for hard. And people, it's like big like pressure. You're living underneath, like deep in the sea. You're living always under high pressure, but there are animals there that have accommodated to that darkness and pressure. So yeah, I agree. Do you think the US can avoid hyperinflation, or is it inevitable at this point? Well, I don't make predictions like this. Try to not to make it, but for me, I'm preparing for it. I cannot make predictions for you. Bitcoin may be one of those things that you can actually own. You can own the private keys. You can definitely own the public and the private keys. I'm not sure if you own the Bitcoin itself. It's just part of the network, right? You're owning your wallet. But how many people do that? I think that's like I asked for people to talk about to come on to my channel where we can talk about cryptocurrencies, where I can play, even though I'm really excited about the crypto space long term and the technology behind it, but I want to play devil's advocate with people. And so far, some of you have answered that. I'm sorry I haven't written emails back to you yet, but I want to make sure that I frame it in the right perspective, so you know what you're looking for if you're coming on to a chat on my YouTube. But yes, thank you. So I think should I say it maybe in a separate video about cryptos? But yeah, I agree on you owning your wallet because it's a secret that you own. But I'm not sure if you own the stuff on it. It's really just part of the system. but it's definitely us outside of the current system to some degree. So yeah, are you staying here? I'm not sure what you mean. Just curious how everyone doing crazy media on the TV just make me puke. Yeah, I try not to follow media too much. I try to make these like 1 2 day breaks, and that's how I completely missed the South African stuff. I was on my break. I think we need to do media breaks, and I don't follow Twitter or all that craziness because I think sanity is much more important than the news. And also, just because the news in us is on a hype, you don't need to go in tune with that. You probably should not go in tune with that, or your vision will be blurred by everyone else's opinion. So look at it and then come back and think about it. And yes, you will miss stuff, and that's fine. I think in life that's fine, but I'm sorry for the people in South Africa, man. Yeah, we should probably talk about that. Maybe with a South African. If you're in South Africa right now and you want to come onto my channel, then go to my about section, and there's a form that you need to fill out to contact me, and I'll get back to you. And if we can work it out and you can provide some good info for us, then I'll be glad to have you for at least 15 minutes or so. But yeah. Uh, okay, wow, a lot of questions. Yeah, I'm just sorry I won't be able to get to this. And even though like I specifically timed it towards midnight so fewer people tune in, so hopefully I can get in your questions. That's why I ask you to get in your questions early on. Um, oh, yeah. Yeah, let me see some more members' questions if there are any. It was sort of last minute thing, so there's not a lot of members' questions specifically for this video. Let me check my Patreon. Thank you for all your questions and everything. I mean, I really appreciate. Yes, this was a kind of last minute thing, so there's not much. Let me ask. Let me go through maybe some of these questions. How do you defend yourself from robberies and theft from relatives during hyperinflation? Oh, that's a sticky question. Yeah, you. Hmm. That one. Sticky question. You let them know that you won't take any. You let them know that robbers and thieves are treated like robbers and thieves first, and then family later. Probably that's the way. But your own relatives, so how to deal with them. I cannot say how to deal with them. America has been morally crumbling for years. Our economy's political spectrum are simply catching up with. I agree. Yeah, I think. I mean, yeah, to the sense that I agree that politics follows culture and morals and people. It just catches up. If you're trying to do political changes, you're trying to wag the dog from its tail. I mean, that at that point it's already too late, and you need to change culture, and then it will trickle down into politics to where politics is easy to change. I mean, one of the things that I see happening, whether people agree with this or not, and whether they like the topic or not, is Like the gun culture of America is having a revival, I think. And that's for a lot of people making all these interesting stuff on YouTube and wherever. And that's changing in young people's mind that, hey, this is a hobby, this is a tool, and not feeding into the news cycle. And that's probably a good way to approach to change things, because you're changing the hearts and minds of people. And when they eventually, that will end up in politics. And I think that's the way to do it. And it needs to be planned out if you're planning longer shifts. But strategize for the war, not for the battle, I would say, if you want change. And that's true for any change, but I see that particularly. So even though the grip of whoever and whatever is trying to tighten, that just signals to me that they are losing control over something. You are like holding the leash stronger when you feel the dog is getting away, to use a metaphor. And technology again is changing, so we'll see how that all of that works out. Okay, 5 more minutes, guys, and I'll just pick some random questions. But thank you all for your questions. Looks like some messages got redacted. They still make moonshine where I live. Yeah, I think you have to know your local laws, but I think it's essential human right to make your own moonshine. My opinion. I don't think that. Yeah, yeah, I agree. It's just, it's nature giving you stuff and you are consuming it. Like, what's wrong in that? Of course, if you have to be a responsible consumer, or you will just ruin your life, like with anything. How many places in your experience that have you shifted during a hard time? How many places in your experience that I'm having a hard time understanding your question. Can you please rephrase it, Nicolas Kohn? Yeah, please rephrase your question. People should realize that Romania was going from socialism to capitalism, not backwards. Yes, correct. So we were going, well, not even socialism, communism, a harder type of socialism, into social communism was easing towards the 80s, so it was sort of back into socialism, and then it was going into capitalism with a socialist flavor, where we are sort of now. And some things were getting better, some things were getting worse, but it was not, it was a unique situation during those times. It's very rare that you would see that now, because of centralization of that we're probably going through now. Did you mention that there might be deflation first? Yes. In Pakistan, people don't pay for water; they have water well everywhere. Yes, I think that's good. That's what you should have. You should have a shallow or deep well. If you try to answer every comment before the end stream, we'll end up till sunrise. Well, I like you guys. Spending the night with you guys. What can I tell? It's really good. But I agree. Like, yeah. Would you think the software engineering or development job would you still outlast an inflation? I think yes, if you're in the right field. I think a lot of stuff in the technology sector is just producing, don't hate me for it, but digital garbage. uh, and I'm in the sector, and so I get to criticize my own sector. But there are definitely other sectors that actually solve problems, and digital garbage is not bad when you have a lot of prosperity and you can afford it. Why not? you know um like, who am I to say not to consume this digital stuff? It's your right to do it. but in the sense of for survival, in the sense of for needs for communication, in the sense of for producing actual tangible stuff, it's useless in that sense, and that's why I called it. Maybe it was too rough, hard. But if you're in robotics, if you're in producing programming microchips that or controllers or communication or that sort of stuff, or 3D printing or that sort of stuff, I think that will still be useful. And I think that's where actually we're moving into, where the we used to have factory workers, now we have programmers, and then eventually we'll have a lot of people who service these machines that produce everything for us. So I think that that's probably, and communication and hyperspace and servers, again, it's different. We'll probably have more of that because there are companies now that are way bigger than governments, and governments, they rule over governments to some degree or not, and they have their own plan, believe it or not, to how to survive even if government fails, and they have solid plans for that. And they probably plan for a rebound where they will rule, and they will need skills. Okay, let's just pick some random question. Five more. Okay, five more. Yeah, I don't appreciate spamming the chat with a lot of the same stuff. So yeah, I'll just do it this once. But no, because if I do it, if I say hi to this person, that I'm incentivizing you to spam the top chat or chat more. So here's a deal, Cbear FN. If you write a comment and comment in the next few minutes that you will no longer spam the chat, and you ask me to do what you would like me to ask to say, then I'll do it. But I don't want to incentivize bad behavior by actually doing that. But it's yeah. So Cbeer FN, if you want me to say whatever you want me to say, don't spam the chat, but ask me politely. And if I get to your question, we're all friends here, and I'll probably do it, even though I'm not sure if who's the person. Okay, I hope that's the right answer. Let me know if that you appreciate that. Having kids and everything, you need to know about psychology. Is there a mood in here? I'm not sure what that means. I think we got that. Yeah, I'd give 3 strikes before I block people. I think that's fair. Okay, next time I only read super chat questions. Yeah, we need to prioritize super chats. So if you want, we still have like 4 more questions. Matthew, thanks for joining again. How do I grow a sexy mustache like yours? I think you have to be from Eastern Europe. I think it's, yeah. Thanks for the comment, made me laugh. Thank you very much. No problem, mate. Take care. All right. Oh, he's trying to get me to say a racial slur. Well, we at least had fun. Okay. Well, now at least you know my philosophy of not rewarding bad behavior, and maybe that saved me. Is that a racial slur? I don't even want to scroll back. It just describes you. But if you misbehave, I will block you. I mean, having fun is good, but not with racial stuff and racial slurs. I take that somewhere else. Yeah, just okay. So he's a troll. Yeah, yeah, okay. All right. Well, there you go. Hey, All right, thanks you guys. It was great. It was really great as always. Yeah, let's block trolls and whatever. But it's fun to have trolls to some degree. Unless they're doing bad, really bad stuff. Okay, one more question. Whoever gets the last question in, I will answer it. Let me see. You know what? Let's do three more because I want to incentivize good behavior, that all of 113 of you stuck with me and you are here. And let me see if the next five questions, whatever it is, as long as it's nice, I'll answer. So, and I'll read. Thank you, Starpath. Thank you very much, Taylor Sessions. Okay, if not, I'll just pick some more. What are you doing to prepare for future hyperinflation for yourself? I want to be self-reliant. I want to be I want to have enough food and necessities for my family and for my loved ones, and hopefully I can help other people as well during hyperinflation. Looks like Alex Garnock is our very first member. So look at that. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Alex, for becoming a Stargazer member on YouTube. And you got the badge. I don't know how that worked, but it's nice. Yeah, you got the badge. Thank you very much. So yes, being self-reliant and being able to help people is very important during hyperinflation times. I think friends made during these times will last for a very long time. So I think that's one of the best investments you can make for a long time, building good connections. And since he's a new member, let's go with his question next. What happened to the stock market during hyperinflation? It might be a longer question, but so we'll probably need a whole video on this. However, I do want to mention that we had a communist economy. So stocks were very different than they are now, where you can purchase them and sell them easily. Stocks were more where if you worked for a company a long time and that company was partially privatized, almost every company was majority government owned, but you could have stocks in these if you worked there, and you earned that. And that was sort of when going into your future pension plan on top of the government pension plan that they had. But since industry and that would have been like on top of her pension plan, a extra pension. However, when she by the time she cashed it out, it was only she could only buy a purse from that money. So since industry went down and went to nothing, stocks also went down and went to nothing. There were some companies that outlasted hyperinflation. These companies were actually producing raw material or extracting raw materials, but they didn't necessarily fare well, and they were nationalized to 100% if they weren't nationalized already. So they didn't go up in price, but if you would hold it for like 20 years or something, you could still eventually get back the purchasing power that once had, right? But I'm not sure if it would the best idea to leave that money or purchasing power into those stocks. That was the case of Romania, but right now um, I could see scenarios, and I mentioned there are companies bigger than governments that will outlast governments, and they do have backup plans. They do have, like, some of these big firms, they do have backup plans for what happens if the government crashes or there's a new system in place. Just like how governments prepare for major calamities, big companies who can afford that. But just because the company stays up doesn't necessarily mean the stock will do well. So you have to factor all that in. It depends on what level of crash you are predicting. If it's just a, you know, transitory hyperinflation that you think the company will live through, then inflation generally pushes up the prices of stocks, but hyperinflation doesn't, because it's a panic, and people sell. So you have to, you know, consult your own investment advisor. But a lot of assets you could pick up on the cheap during hyperinflation compared to food price. Like, price of a stock could increase nominally, but if you would measure the same stock price in bread or in something trivial that is looks trivial but actually necessary for survival, that price or that relative price would be actually falling. So it's a very tricky game to play, and I don't have my phone here with me, but I will share some of my stock picks that I and give my um, perspective. But right now, I started, well, not right now, I just purchased some more agricultural ETFs. But I don't give this an advice to anyone. It's my money. I can do what I whatever I want to it. It's just I just purchased some of that, but who knows how it will perform, right? And I tend to put my stop losses very high in case if case something breaks, then I don't want to catch a falling knife, or how to say that. But thank you for the question. Thank you very much for becoming a member. Hopefully, I will see you around more. Thank you. Are you a prepper currently? I'm not sure if I qualify for a prepper. I mean, some of the prepping stuff, it was just way of life for us ever since ever. But I mean, I do prepare. I do prepare. But a lot of preppers do take it to a completely different level, and they can afford that. And if it's a hobby for them, then good for them. So, yeah. What do you think the chances are that nice, gentle financial repression, nice, gentle financial repression that erodes the national debt away without slipping into hyperinflation? I think there's a chance for that. I think that would be planned. However, if it picks up a certain speed and confidence is lost, then hyperinflation will happen. And that, I think, to study this, you have to study the Roman Empire, because the United States and whatever we have, this cluster of Western countries, it's an empire. We cannot study individual countries. So you would have to study the fall of the Roman Empire, I think. Not even the fall of the Soviet Union. The effects on the people would be the same. I think there's still a chance of a nice, gentle final repression. However, it's just an accounting system. You think that they have to erode their national debt away, right? And they don't have to. They don't have to. They can increase national debt to close to infinity. The purchasing power will be eroded away, right? But they can erode their debt away without necessarily eroding your debt away. There's definitely a chance. I think that's the plan right now for a couple of years, but we'll see how it plays out. Would you been better off fleeing? With hindsight, yes. So, yes, a lot of people did flee, and they did very well. And they were actually able to help people in Romania with foreign currencies that they sent back. However, it was not for us. it was just not for us. We had family members that needed help during that time, and we would not abandon them. We had roots, and until they passed away or they were made sure that they were taken care of, a lot of us would not leave. There were times where my cousin left the country for periods of time to help in different ways, but a lot of the skilled labor fled immediately, like doctors and engineers. And you will find like nuclear scientists from this time who came to United States from Romania and so on. There was a big brain drain, which made things much worse in Romania. How much gold would have got you through? It's not enough. At some point, you have to have stuff, not just gold. I don't think any amount of gold would, just having gold by itself would have been enough, because if in a major calamity you start trading gold, I mean, you will be a target. I'm not a proponent of having gold on you in your house or anywhere you're living, right? Now I have, again, multiple citizenships, so I have different options of how and where I want to do what. But um, yeah, it's you have to prepare, and the way you have to prepare, and I treat gold as an insurance policy to kind of go through these scenarios where your wealth that you built before the hyperinflation is still there after whatever hyperinflation did to the country or to the economy. So if you have your gold, you know, 3 feet underground in a national forest somewhere, it will be there waiting for you in 20 years. Of course, I'm not giving this as advice, but um, people did that, I imagine. Okay, and last two questions. I'd say your own research rather than consult a financial investment advisor. Yeah, well, you do what you have to do, you know. Yeah, doing your own research makes you the owner of your money. If you're just consulting everyone else, then are you really owning that money, or are you? Yeah, good question. Most financial advisors have only ever known the manipulated crony capitalism market. Yeah, I agree. The crony capitalism market, and to be honest, everyone, almost everyone, I can't say everyone, but they are looking out for themselves. You know, the financial advisor wants you to make money, so you bring it back to him. You know, and then you can make money, so he can take his share. And the broker's the same, and every entity ever, whether that's in nature, in economy, or whatever it is, it's really up there to look out for his own survival. And that's how things are. Even with governments, they are looking out for their own survival, and that's nature. That's how things work. You know, you can rally against it and you can fight against it, but you know, if you understand nature, that's how it works. And then you need to be able to work in that environment, you know, and we wish for a better future for sure. However, that's the case right now, and we have to be able to work in that. So if you want, like, my opinion, a bunch on a lot of brokers and most financial advisors, not everyone, you can take a look at the Wolf of Wall Street Fugazi scene. So that's a good one. You can learn a lot from that one. Thank you so much for your wonderful live stream. Thank you, Shinjin. I hope I pronounced that name right. Thank you. Thanks a lot for sharing your thoughts. Great info. Yeah, join us next time. Thanks for absolutely everything. Your perspective sharing I found so invaluable. You guys are amazing, each and every one of you. So thank you very much. And talk to you next time. Hopefully, sooner. However, I do like the nighttime to have a slower pace. So wanted to mention this actually right before you go. I do have on the about section on my channel some alternative channels and even a form, a Google form where you can enter your email. It just gets into a spreadsheet, you know. I'm not sending emails out or anything like that. It's just in case if we lose connection through YouTube, so we can stay in touch. However, if you don't trust Google spreadsheets or whatever, the buymeacoffee.com/starpath academy does have a follower state, I believe. So there are followers, supporters, and members. And you don't necessarily have to, of course, I would appreciate that if you would support me or become a member there, but you don't have to do that. You can also follow there. So at least that way I have your email. I can shoot out notifications to you there if you're interested in that. But the Google form that I have there on the about section is just for collecting your email, where it's not stored in MailChimp's database or anywhere else. It just goes into a spreadsheet that, I don't collect names or anything like that. It's just for us in case of an emergency, to me to send out an email if the YouTube channel would be lost for one reason or another. But there's the same thing is possible through buymeacoffee.com, or we can make up new ways. I'm not necessarily a big fan of Google, so I understand if that's what you're thinking about. All right. Thank you very much for everything. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you for becoming members. And thank you for all your great questions. I had a really good time. Now let's go to bed, I guess. Thanks.